Hello, I'm Vanessa Montgomery and I'm the theater director at Loara High School. This year has definitely been an interesting year, and we have really tried to keep the arts alive. But with so much going on, not just in the world, but in our students' lives and in their homes and in their education, we wanted to do something that was meaningful. And so I decided to propose to the students to do a verbatim theater piece. A verbatim theater piece is a piece of work where the actors go out and they interview people, they do research and get firsthand accounts of events and situations that have happened in other people's lives. And we did just that. The students got together and they made a list of the most important topics. And then from those topics, they chose which one that they would like to do. They went and interviewed people, and from their interviews, they wrote reflections. Now, normally, a verbatim theater piece is performance-based, where you take what you have interviewed, what you have gained, what you have researched, and create a piece where you are using the words of the people that you interviewed and researched to show what they have gone through and what they have experienced. This was really difficult for our students. They were reliving some of the things that have happened recently in our society, and it greatly affected them, both positively and really made them think and try to understand what is just going on in our world. We needed a break. We needed some happiness. We needed some fun. So we had that. And I made the decision to turn these verbatim theater pieces into a reflection piece where students could reflect on what they heard and what they learned and bring a piece of their inspiration from this to you. So what you're about to see and hear are quotes from the interviews, as well as the student reflections from what they learned, what they heard, what they feel. And we hope that you take a little piece of that from this, that you reflect on what you're hearing, and you reflect on what is important to teenagers' lives right now and what has been important in the last year. Because I truly believe that they are our future, and I really do think that this future, when I'm old and 80 and 90, I'm gonna be so happy because these students are making a difference. Thank you.
All cops are doing a terrible job, and that's where you get calls like, oh, we just need to defund the police or abolish the police at all because they're all terrible. When in reality, I think, 99% of cops are actually good and are doing a really good job, but it's just a few bad ones that make mistakes or make horrible, horrible mistakes, and those are what gets us blasted and, presented in the media, and it makes overall all of us look bad, when in reality, it's just a couple people that look bad. So, quote by David Wilkinson. I agree, but disagree. I may not be a cop or someone who is really involved in the department, but I know from experience and other people's experiences that there are a lot more than just 1% of cops that are doing a bad job. And I do believe that Mr. Wilkinson's department is doing a really good job keeping their community safe and hiring the best of the best. But on the other hand, a lot of the other departments show a lack of carelessness and a lack of involvement, especially in my city. When we call, they don't pick up. And when they do pick up, they don't show up. So I do believe that we should keep a positive mindset and be like Mr. Wilkinson and, recognize that there are good cops out there. But we should also consider that all departments are different and all departments don't, well, not all departments hire with care. And I do wish that they did take the time to get deeper background checks, and maybe, just maybe, there would not be so many horrible, horrible mistakes being made by bad cops.
I'm not sure about my family's point of view. I think most of the parents are like against it because of religious things. This was a quote from my friend I interviewed for my Verbatim Theatre project about LGBTQ plus community. I thought the quote was interesting because of what it was suggesting, that older generations, like parents, might have more negative or less accepting views towards the LGBTQ plus community because of the way they were raised, like through religious beliefs or just in general. And then I started noticing a pattern. Even though the two people I interviewed were both of the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, other people I know, parents and grandparents, they seem to have less open views towards the community, and I thought it was interesting. That's not saying that all older generations actively hate the community. It's just a pattern I noticed, that because of the way they were raised and religious beliefs, that they might have negative biases towards the community. And even though this message was from a quote about the LGBTQ community, it can apply to many things, because we all have subconscious biases and prejudices, and we should learn where those biases are coming from so we can overcome those biases and end a cycle of unnecessary hatred and bigotry.
When beginning the Verbatim Piece project, I wasn't sure how this would work out or what I would be doing. However, it progressively made more sense as I gathered with my team and collected information with them. My team chose to talk about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and interview folks that have been impacted by her death and replacement in the House. It was interesting to learn how she strove to change things for the better, especially for women in the U.S. She was also known for making friendships despite the different political views of the other justices in the House. For example, one of my interviewees said, "I also really respect her work as far as upholding the Affordable Care Act. I think she has done a lot of good in our country." They then went on to list achievements RPG made in concerns to the LGBT community and how it resonated with his companions. I feel she was a very important person in the US and made many great accomplishments. Seeing her be replaced with someone who wants the opposite of that is terrible to see.
As my mom once said, I think that everybody's a little bit racist. I think that there's a difference between being racist and being prejudiced. I think that it's a little bit natural to be racist in America because we've always been so split up and divided. I just think that not everybody intends to be hurtful with their racism, because the people that do intend to be hurtful with their racism, they scare me, for one. Two, I feel bad for them because they were raised to just believe some lies and they don't see us as equals. Though I may not look like it, I'm actually 25% black. So growing up, my brother and I were taught the importance of why Black Lives Matter and the tragedies our people have and still face to this day. So I've always supported Black Lives Matter. And after interviewing my mother and aunt, I feel like I have a better perspective on how black people feel about things like racism and situations that not only have been going on now, but have been going on for generations.
Immigration. What do you think about when hearing that word? Sadness. How difficult it must be being an immigrant. Heartbreaking, especially when an innocent immigrant gets deported, even though they did not do anything wrong, like crimes. There have been many cases where innocent immigrants still get taken away. Immigration has led to a separation of families. It's not an easy life for them. You see, there are people thinking that these immigrants are here to destroy their country and steal their jobs, but it's nothing like that at all.
Jobs for immigrants are a whole different story. This is what my interviewer had to say about this.
These immigrants are people coming to this country can take jobs that people who are already here don't want those jobs, you hear me? People who are here want those high salary jobs. Well, immigrants who are coming to this country will take anything they can get. They'll work on the farm, they'll work in the back room, they'll put food on the table, whatever they can do. They get sunburnt, tanned, overheated, and get not so much sleep.
Just like any worker would. Why should immigrants be treated differently?
The fear of being deported, leaving their children with one parent only, or both parents being taken away, or maybe the immigrant was a single parent.
Wait, what happens to the children of those immigrants?
The children sometimes end up in cages. Those cages will traumatize those children, scare them from the real world and their surroundings while in there. There are some children who have cried on live television for their parent separation. Being pushed, attacked, taken away in front of their children, it's insane.
It's just not acceptable how some ICE officers treat the immigrants.
Because of the Verbatim Theatre project, I now know why it's a challenge that they are willing to take to become better and help their family.
I really hope there is some change in the future for immigrants. Thank you.
I do not think the police department are careful with who they hire, and the evidence is right in front of our faces. It was these words that really stuck out to me when I decided to take on the topic of police brutality. As a white passing male, I have never really noticed how bad police brutality issue was until I started researching the topic. But trust me when I say the issue stems from the system of power that is embedded deep in racism and power complexes. I got to see how people perceive the police and noticed that even from a young age, we are told that they are the good guys and here to protect us. However, in these past few years, no one has seen them as such cause, and has seen them more as a villain. They use the fact that people see them as the bad guys to inexcuse behavior when they do something bad, almost as a blanket statement of sorts. If we want to trust our police force again, then we have to feel safe from them themselves and not thinking over our shoulder if they're going to do something illegal. This is a world where we have to live in, where we have to not even be able to trust our own police force and the people who were put on guard to serve for us and protect us. Some of the issues I've seen have been terrible, with people being racially profiled and much, much more. I really hope as a society one day we can come back to be able to respect our police force and not just see them as ways of the past and ways of the old, but something we can embrace and really be proud in once more.
I absolutely, positively will not turn around and support any type of discrimination against someone who identifies as LGBTQ. That is something which I've learned from interviewing someone. I think that it is very important, especially for those who do not well educate themselves properly, or to know that any type of discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community could possibly trigger them, or to fight their ways out of being discriminated or being made fun of for identifying as any type of sexuality, gender, or pronouns. I think that this topic made a huge impact on me because I get to learn what other people think in their own words about the LGBTQ plus community.
I learned that people are always pretending, and you would never guess that they even have a mental illness. I think that mental illness is a very misunderstood and serious issue. People think it's something that you can get rid of when it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. Some are worse than others, but hey, it's totally normal. Not like a fairy godmother or father is going to wave their magic wand and make the mental illness disappear when that's not how it works. I wish it was that way, but it's not. Good thing there is medication, therapy, etiquette. It's very sad that people have to go through the suffering and struggle of just living with their mental illness. It affects the way they think, act, and feel.
Well, I learned a lot about my topic, which was police brutality. Police brutality is such a big thing that you can find it all over the internet, which shows it's a big problem. Cops who do police brutality should not be cops at all. They should be held accountable for what they did. My quote, which is, "There is no justice in police brutality," is the one I chose because it gets straight to the point, but is also very simple. Like, what justice is there in police brutality when all you do is hurt people and bring no justice? So this has been my reflection on police brutality.
Hey, I'm Carla, and today I'll be talking about my experience with conducting interviews for my Verbatim project. My project was on gender inequality, and I learned many things from my interview. I knew beforehand that it mostly happened to women, but I was shocked to find out that it also happened to men too. The person I was interviewing told me that he had once had a teacher that misgraded him just because he was a male. Honestly, I was shocked when I found this out. The person I was interviewing also said, "I just view us male and females as the same species. We're the same person and we should treat each other with the same amount of respect one would have towards the other." Personally, I don't really think everyone wants to be treated as the same gender, but overall I agree we should treat each other with the same amount of respect towards each other. In conclusion, this was definitely an interesting project and I did learn a lot. I also encourage others to be kind to one another and treat each other with respect. I hope that you have a great day and thank you for listening.
In 1619, slavery was born. In 1865, slavery ended. This is just one huge problem. How about racism, the root of all these problems? It's been here for a long time and shows no signs of disappearing. And the big problem born from racism is police brutality. Police are the people that are sworn to protect us. And yet, some police decide to abuse of power. This abuse of power was shown on May 25th, 2020, when a police officer choked the life out of a man. This man's name, may he rest in peace, was George Floyd. A lot of people blamed the cops and protested. You probably heard of George Floyd. A lot of people got mad, started rioting. Some people couldn't believe it. Some people just didn't care. I personally thought it was a tragedy. News got out quickly. It was on the news, basically anywhere where there was a screen on it. It was all blaming cops. A news reporter interviewed a man at a protest, and he replied with, "It's kind of sad that we're still experiencing, like so much racism. And we're like, what, 2020? And it's not true. I can't believe we're in 2021, so far into the future, and racism is still a big thing." Police brutality descends from racism and the abuse of power. Not all police are to blame. Some put their lives on the line. And if you go and saying that police are all bad, then you're badly mistaken. If a guy cheats on a girl, it doesn't mean that all men are bad. Some people are good and some people are not. A police officer is shown to respect. Not all are bad, but not all are good. Just like the people in the world. Some are going to be good, and some just aren't.
This is Angelica doing the Verbatim Theatre interview reflection. I learned a lot of things during these interviews. I learned about life experiences that some people went through that I would have never learned about if I hadn't done these interviews. And I learned that, as someone said in one of the interviews, everyone should be their own person. I'm not anyone's judge. And I completely agree with that. I think that through these interviews, I have learned that people go through different experiences, and you can't judge people based on who they appear to be on the surface. My interviews were about Black Lives Matter. Going into these interviews, I believe that Black Lives Matter, because people shouldn't be judged solely based on their skin color. I interviewed two people, my cousin Loara, who is Hispanic, and a security guard at my school, Tammy, who's Black. I interviewed them because I thought it would be interesting to get the point of view of a Black person and a non-Black person on this matter. They both told me very similar things. Black Lives Matter, and people shouldn't be bullied or shamed because of their skin color. This is all information we all knew, right? So why is it still an issue? As I interviewed Tammy, she spoke about a racist incident her father had in 19-something, and it made me kind of sad in the moment to see that we actually have been in the same situation we are for years, decades even. And yes, we fight for equality, but we're barely starting to make a change. Don't get me wrong, I fully support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I always will, because Black people are people too. But it's just wrong that we're making this whole effort to try to show people that it's wrong to kill people because of their skin color, and they just look the other way still. And I think we've already made the move in the right direction, but it will take more than just changing people in the office to make a change. We need everyone, and as Miss Tammy said, to acknowledge that it's real and it's happening. You don't have to go to any protests to be able to say you support it. Just realize that it's real and it's still happening.
Oh, if the president can do it, why can't I? Talking about a topic we feel strongly about. Most of everybody's topics related back to the former president, who has been careless with his actions ever since he entered office. I've learned from even my own topic. I've talked to several people about their experiences and what they think about it. For one of the interviews, I interviewed my grandmother, and she told me her life was so much better here than in Mexico. And of course she has regrets, but she would never change anything. I can imagine that it is the same thing for any person being held at the border. They may not want to go back and just want to be here to have a better life for themselves and their families.
The police. The people who are in charge of protecting us and the people around us have recently come under fire as more and more video footage surfaces online of them using excessive violence towards people in the Black community. Now I believe that there needs to be major reforms inflicted in the system to prevent any more of these violent actions from occurring. I am thankful that this fortunately isn't a regular occurrence in every police department across the United States. A quote from David Wilkinson, an Anaheim police officer, states, quote, that the media doesn't have 90 to 80% of what cops do or what law enforcement does, because a lot of what cops do isn't that exciting, right? Like, it wouldn't be very interesting story, what I do every day or what my partners do every day. It's not that exciting, end quote. This showcases that a lot of what officers do isn't very exciting, and most likely would range from jaywalking to parking violations and other small minor crimes. However, this does not excuse the behavior of those who did partake in those violent actions that were shown on video. Violence like that against humanity, against people who are no lesser than you, is a crime to our society as a whole and is a big reason on why reform needs to happen. Even though not every officer is like that, and it might just be one bad apple. A bad apple can spoil the bunch.
We've seen cases where recently cops have been shot in public or in their own cars because of the sole reason that they're cops and no other reason at times. So I think that the Black Lives Matter movement has, made the cops' main image more of a negative thing, when we should feel like cops are our protectors, but I also understand that they don't always feel like protectors of our community because, of course, with police brutality. This quote came from an adult who studies criminal justice in an interview on police brutality. While reading this, I got the perspective of someone who is studying criminal justice, and of course their views are very much different from mine because they know how the system works better than I do. But one thing I know we have in common is that police brutality is real. The oppression of people of color and minorities is beyond comprehension. I find it kind of ironic how in that quote this person says, the Black Lives Matter movement has, made the cops' main image more of a negative thing, because this is exactly what is happening to victims of police brutality. It is so devastating on how the people who are our heroes are doing the most unheroic actions. So many minorities are scared for their lives because of all the videos online of people of color doing absolutely nothing and then suddenly getting added to the list of the so many unbelievable victims of police brutality. This person covers the media and internet in their interview as well. I think it's good that people have been using their platform to speak out on the many racist injustices in our country because it is literally built on racism. If you think otherwise, then you have some serious reflecting to do. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting people of color and minorities by using your platform for news on important matters. Thank you for watching this.